Well, good evening. We're Dave and Michelle Rofkahrs. As a young college student, I attended my first Kaleo in Dallas, Texas at SMU, and we stayed at the ATO house. And it was on that project where I really first learned to share my faith without having some prop in my hand. Learned the basic bridge illustration, learned the verses that went with that. Learned also then how to do Bible study methods, which I'd never thought of before. I never realized that was possible. Thought you had to have some kind of seminary degree to do that. And, so those are some of the things that Kaleo really made a dramatic impact on me. We weren't doing beach projects yet, stuff like that, but we had a great time in Dallas. And Michelle, you learned some things too. After we got married, you came back and were part of that as well. So.
Right. Just had a wonderful time of spending time with these young women, trying to just mold and shape them and learn how to, walk with Christ every day and time in prayer together and just having fun. We just had so much fun together all summer, and that was what I remember most about Kaleo.
Yeah. We were at the University of Arkansas on campus there doing ministry, and then later moved to the University of Central Arkansas and opened the campus work there at UCA, and took those things we'd learned basically also at Kaleo, took those back to campus with us and began to figure out how to apply those things as we're meeting students in fraternities and sororities and on dorms, stuff like that, athletic teams. We then felt like we needed to go on and get some more training. I thought we'd be more involved in church planting then at that point, planting churches that would help mobilize college students to go reach the nations, the unreached. That then eventually led us to actually going to China, believe it or not. I'd had a passion for that. A call went out when we were in graduate school and seminary to go and equip the struggling house church pastors of the persecuted church in China. And since we blend in so well in China, it's really, it was easy. That call went out, and so I came to Michelle one night and I said, "Honey, how would you feel about moving to China?" And she, said, "What'd you say?" And so, but eventually, took us there. The church in China, back when we went in the late '90s, originally, was a church under great persecution. Very difficult to be a believer. You knew who was and who was not a believer. There was a price to pay. There was the government church as well as the underground house church movement. And so we focused a lot of our attention on specifically equipping house church leaders, house church pastors, equipping new house church pastors, and equipping existing pastors to be more effective in their ministry, to multiply their ministry. Again, how to study the scriptures, how to share their faith more effectively, how to lead in more healthy fashions and things like that. And so we did that full time for a period of, we were in China altogether about 14 years plus. And so what happened is that we wanted to focus there on multiplying leaders. We did not plant a church ourselves in China. We didn't do that. Don't tell our supporters.
We had a fellowship in our home.
Yeah.
Of international people. We had an international fellowship.
Yeah.
That was the only church we planted.
Yeah, we did plant an international fellowship in our city, but we did not plant a Chinese church, because what was more effective, what was more strategic, was for us to multiply ourselves into the lives of others. So again, those multiplication principles that we learned early on, reading books like Disciples Are Made Not Born and Master Plan of Evangelism by Robert Coleman, all those great principles that you're even learning right now in Kaleo, you'll take with you for the rest of your life, to be honest. But what we realized too, that as now the church, as we look back and we're still engaged with Chinese ministry, even though now we are based in the U.S. and I'm involved in our mission that we work for as a mobilizer, as a recruiter for new generation workers to go out from the U.S. to go to the unreached, to reach the unreached and tell the untold. We are now, though, focusing much of our attention, although we still do gospel ministry like that in China, we're now focused, I do a lot of training with pastors there and movements there who are trying now to send laborers cross-culturally. They have a great passion in the Chinese church, which is now perhaps anywhere from 70 to 100 million believers. Huge number, perhaps anywhere from 5 to 10% of the population. But so what we're trying to do then is get these guys now equipped to become senders as organizationally. How do we help them become senders of healthy people, healthy individuals to go to these other locations where, frankly, most folks can't go these days, those creative access context places. So they went out first with a lot of zeal, but then they didn't prepare people well. They didn't support them financially well, didn't support them prayerfully well, didn't support them emotionally well. So what was happening is that after a year out in these other cultures, a lot of those workers came back after maybe just a year, pretty burned out and pretty, hurt. And so now the church in China is much more open in working with multiple organizations together and their own churches to say, how do we prepare well these individuals to go cross-cultural, to plant churches, multiply churches among all peoples? How do we address culture as learners? How do we go into culture and learn other languages? How do we support individuals from the churches in China financially? How do we become a giving church, a praying church, a mobilizing church? All those things like that. So those are the things that we're focusing on right now, especially. God's given us still a heart for Asia, but also the world. So we're good. So Kaleo took us from Dallas, Texas, from the fraternity in Dallas, Texas, on a hot summer, all the way still today, 30 years later, to be honest, still trying to walk with Jesus, still trying to keep those same practices of sharing our faith, making disciples, and telling that good news from the neighborhood to the nations. And again, we appreciate all that's going on down there. Pray for you guys. You're having a great summer, we know. We pray for the staff as well. And take advantage of this opportunity to grow in your faith. It's a remarkable time. And just to have fun, enjoy it, and take what you're learning back to your campus then to grow strong in your relationship with Jesus Christ. Praying for you. Love you guys. Thanks for letting us share. Bye-bye.